Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion at the Singapore FinTech Festival. The stage is set for digital disruption in the banking industry. I'm Shweta Jain, Director Digital and Cloud Product and Strategy at Finastra, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. I would like to thank Singapore FinTech Association for giving us this opportunity to be a part of this event. A few housekeeping rules. If you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to type in the Teams chat during the session, and we'll try to answer them at the end of the session if time permits. Let me start off by introducing our panelists today. They are thought-provoking leaders and experts in the banking industry, and will leave you with great insights by the end of this session. Please welcome Greg Krasnow, founder and CEO of the first digital bank in Southeast Asia, Tonic Bank. Tonic Bank is based out of Singapore, serving the Philippines market. Dr. Jocelyn, CTO, Yoma Bank, one of Myanmar's largest commercial bank. He's the key driver of the digital transformation story for Yoma Bank. Mr. Alex Titlianov, CTO of AMTD Digital, the digital solutions arm of AMTD Group, headquartered in Singapore. They've recently launched Airstar Bank in Hong Kong as part of the virtual banking license. And last but not the least, Mr. Anand Subbaraman, General Manager, Retail Banking, Finastra, a veteran in the tech industry who's going to give us insights on how technology is at the heart of digital disruption. Thank you all for joining us today. Digital disruption is changing the rules of the game, blurring the lines between banks and fintechs, and creating a need for dramatic efficiency across the board with focus on customer experience. Let's throw open the panel for our experts, and I would like to start with you, Greg, and open the discussion. How does it feel to have started the first digital bank in Southeast Asia? And tell us more about the journey to launch the bank, especially during the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Shweta. Well, it feels complicated because obviously these are not the easiest times to be launching a brand new startup with multi-country footprint. Well, our operations are in the Philippines. We do our R&D in Singapore and India. So it's been quite a challenge to manage the teams across various jurisdictions. Also, obviously, we've had delays coming to the market because of the mainly regulatory delays. It was very difficult for us to progress our bank license while the regulator was actually shut down for a couple of months. But I'm very glad to report that we've done that. And yeah, as you guys at Finastra know and have been with us all the way on this, we went live last week. So this week is very exciting for us as we're trying to get all the bugs out, and we're running in beta mode for the next couple of months. So very interesting times, but I think what we see is on the customer side, definitely a huge validation of our premise. And, you know, if there's one thing that the lockdowns do for the digital economy, digital banking, it's to drive the consumers much more towards the digital proposition. So we really see a huge pull from the customers who can't wait for us to come to the market.
Thank you, Greg, and congratulations again for the go live. Dr. Kessel, if I would like to hear from you, how does established bank like Yoma Bank sees this digital disruption? What is the impact that you have seen, and how is Yoma Bank flip this journey of being a fully digital bank now?
Yeah. So when I look at the history, Yoma Bank was started in 1993, 27 years ago. So it is quite young in the international banking history and industry. But in the Myanmar, when we started Yoma Bank, we started with first branch and all manual, right? Every forms, everything is forms. And daily closing, we are using the calculator. And after that, we changed the banking to the computerized banking. But at this moment, the telco infrastructure is not as advanced or good or stable as today. So we have to put the customer database to each and every branch. So every branch, we are having the silo client server application around that, right? So After that, we think, how can we do the Yoma Bank to be a more digital to the customer? If we don't have a customer centralized database, how are we going to provide, especially even the fund transfer account to account within the Yoma Bank? So that is, we have to start thinking of the strategy, and then we decided, by the way, all the silo client server application at the time are used by Yoma Bank is developed by me, so I write most of the code, and it was 15 years for a Yoma Bank we use. And then we select the Finastra as our modern core banking, as a Fusion Essence, to migrate all the information, customer information, transaction history to a single centralized platform. That is the journey we start our digital. And from there, it is step by step, we are enabling the web app, all the multiple channels, ADM to our customer. So we are still not end of the game or end of the journey. We are just beginning of the journey, and then walking stage by stage, step by step, to be able to provide all our customer digitally.
Thank you, Dr. Kesal. Indeed, a fascinating journey, and it's a long leap from being completely manual to becoming fully digital. Anand, I would like to take this to you to understand. Fusion Essence, your core banking system, is at the heart of both the journey that Tonic took for a digital bank and the journey that Yoma Bank took for digital transformation. How do you see that coming together for both these banks?
For the Yoma Bank, core banking is a kind of heart or maybe center of all the customer information and transactions, right? So from there, there will be a multiple class of the customer segmentation, right? If more on the corporate or a little bit more on high value customer, we can have a CRM solution to have a single or maybe dedicated relationship manager working on that solution to understand customer 360 degree, right? But the single source of truth should be in core banking, and all the transaction history should be in core banking. At the same time, for the mass market and majority of the customer, right, they want to look at their account history information, or they want to manage their account payment, then we may have a multiple digital channels, but all the transactions need to be go to the Essence. So Essence is a kind of the core transaction engine plus product engine, right? We need to create a lot of the product for the customer. So we need very flexible, configurable, and stable, and able to expand our transaction growth easily and manage. So that is something we working with the Essence, as on that perspective.
Understand. And indeed, customer centric and being digital is at the heart of any bank's digital transformation journey. So over to you, Anand. How do you see Fusion Essence playing out for both these bank stories?
Sure. Thank you, Shweta. And first of all, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dr. Kesal. Both of you have been very great customers of Finastra. And again, when we see the world transform, we are going through a technology transformation in banking, and both of you are at the forefront of it in different ways. Greg, your company is going to start off a neo-digital bank ground up in Philippines, a completely different experience. And Dr. Kesal, Yoma has digitally transformed itself, going after a huge segment upcountry in Myanmar, as well as all digital natives coming into Myanmar. If you can take a look, the end goals of both of you really are focused after the unbanked, the underbanked segments, and providing very cutting edge digital products to digital natives. And when I look at it, Essence and Finastra solution with our platform is at the heart of both of your transformations. So we're able to service the end goal very well, be it coming in from a classic mindset of banking, or be it coming in from a neo mindset in banking. The foundational housekeeping, the foundations, the structure cater to this in today's cloud native, today's world very well and very elegantly. Over to you, Shweta.
Thank you, Anand. And indeed, yes, the cloud native world is also expanding into how the partners and the ecosystems play a very important role in the digital journey and the bank's journey. So Alex, just wanted to get your thoughts on how is AMTD disrupting the banking landscape and how are you leveraging on your partner ecosystem?
Thank you very much, Peter. So probably the IMTD approach is not new, and we see quite a lot of platforms that are available in the market. But our belief is that our partners, the startups and the companies that we products through the same channel to our customers. So that is our goal, to create the ecosystem where every partner can come with their products, business products, banking products, and give it to the customers. For sure, we see we see a lot of challenges. We see a lot of interesting problems related to the data ownership, related to the processes, customers, customer privacy. All these problems are very interesting to solve. All these problems are relevantly new when you are talking about the banking world. The banking world is not used to combine multiple products coming from different providers through one channel. That's a challenge for sure, but I believe that we are moving quite fast to show our first products and deliver our first products to our customers.
Interesting. Thank you, Alex. And I hope you move fast and you move well on this journey. We've heard about digital disruption. You've been hearing the buzzword digital disruption every time you talk about banks and partners, fintechs. Now, there is a different view and a different perspective on what the term digital means. So I'm going to throw it open to our panelists, starting with you, Greg. How do you define digital for Taulik Bank?
Thank you, Shweta. I think for us, when we think about what does the digital mean in context of digital banking, we think of automation throughout the value chain. Basically, I see digital as the fundamental driver of superior and new kind of profitability in the banking sector. I mean, one only has to look at the model of a couple of well-developed digital banks like Tinkoff in Russia and a couple others. Tinkoff last year pulled off ROE north of 70%. So that's what you get when you are able to automate across the value chain. Origination, underwriting, collections, servicing, financing, all the pieces. Fundamentally, if you're building up with purely digital technology, your cost point becomes very, very different than the cost point of a traditional bank. And I'm talking about unit costs. So to me, that's one element of digital. Another element of digital is in the context of the delivery of service. Because you can operate at such a low cost point, you can now profitably access very different types of customers that you couldn't previously access with the banking service. And I'm talking about both the traditional checking account, saving account, liability type products, where you can go into the financial inclusion segment, what it's now called, as well as lending. In a place like Myanmar, for example, I'm very, very excited for Yoma Bank because basically everybody is a financial inclusion customer, and nobody has a credit history. And when you're using the digital footprint, you can really create scorecards that are much more efficient than the typical traditional demographic scorecards. And you can really reach out into that segment. So to me, basically, digital has an impact both on the cost structure as well as on the ability to reach the financial inclusion consumer with a relevant and profitable service. And that's why we're so excited about it, and that's why we do what we do.
Thank you, Greg. And Dr. Kesel, to you, how do you define digital for a bank, which Greg clearly mentioned has a big story for financial inclusion in the country?
Allow me to start with one of the famous quote, right? People doesn't need bank, they need banking, right? Sure. So for me, digital is to provide the consumer or people the banking, right? Digitally without need to going to the face-to-face, right? In Myanmar, most of the transactions are stay cash-based and stay a lot on the counter, right? Face-to-face, over-the-counter transactions. So in this kind of the COVID situation, right? So meeting people, going to the branch, high traffic are really blocking stone for the efficiency for the business. So our goal is to provide the banking service to our customer digitally. Digitally means they can go to the branch, but without people, right? They may be a couple of kiosks or tablet they can do, or they can use the mobile or web to be able to do, right? So that is from the application or technical perspective, but that is not enough for digital, right? To be able to fully digital, the currency also need to be digitized, right? So in Myanmar, we are still journey to do, right? A lot of our transactions are still cash-based. So we need to digitize our currency, and we need to digitize a lot of our payments. So it's overall, the end-to-end, right? So for the daily life, as a people going, paying, buying, and saving, getting the finance loan, end-to-end, the whole life cycle can do remotely without having face-to-face is the objective of the fully digital achievement. That's from me, and we are trying to be there as a journey.
Thank you. And indeed, very well put that digital is not just a bank's journey, it is also the entire country's journey and how the regulators and the infrastructure and your customers see it. So, Anand, taking it to you, what is digital from a technology vendor's perspective, and how do you see yourself playing a role in this?
Thank you. And I think if you take a look, both Greg and Dr. Kesal got the business end, right? From a technology end, digital is a complete end-to-end experience that needs to be neo in the way the world works today. It needs to have no manual processing. So the complete experience from what a customer does all the way in a banking to the back office, all the way into your data warehouse, that complete 360 of the transaction view has to be hands-free, it has to be automated. The flexibility that a customer can create products, can push products, a bank can push products to all their customers, write interesting rules all by themselves. That's again digital. So when we talk about it from an essence point of view, our whole strategy and vision is digital to the core. So it's all of these pieces, abstracting the rules out of the core itself, allowing for banks and financial institutions to create the rules on the fly as they wish. Having the facade of APIs being essentially allows the banks and the fintechs to play with that facade very easily, irrespective of what housekeeping, house changes happens on the interior itself. Eventually, my goal would be to eliminate what a bank would have as a classic end of day. In a traditional banking world, the notion of end of day, but in a digital banking world, what is end of day? There's no end of day, there's no start of day. Everything is real time, and that's where the whole industry and technology needs to go towards. At any point of time, I need to know the position as a CEO of what's happening, the position on my books, the position of my customer. Why should I have lending algorithms that talk about interest calculations on this? It just needs to be real time and calculate. That's about it, right? Now, I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think anybody in the market is there yet. People are going in that direction, and we want to go there. Because what is end of day? I go back to that question, a core banking perspective. In a real-time digital world, there is no end of day, there is no start of day, right? And if we get to that holy grail, I'll consider it from a technology perspective, we are truly achieved. I think it's a long way out, but we will get there.
Thank you, Anand. Yes, it's a long way out, and it needs some fundamental and structural changes all over for us to get there soon.
And it's not just about the technology, it's all the people change, right?
Correct.
Everybody in the bank, today the banking world, has been used to end of day, right?
Yep.
It's a mindset shift, it's a mindset change, and that's going to take all of us time. I think that's really where banks, like with people like Greg, Alex, KSL, it's a role that we all have to play in this journey to get there.
Indeed, yes. And we would be supporting it through the technology in this journey too. Moving on to the fintechs and the partners, Singapore is paving the way for APAC to be emerging fintech hotspot with more than 50% of fintechs headquartered here. Which brings us to this interesting question, and I'll take it to you, Alex. How does AMTD see the fintech space in Singapore? Alex, I would need you to unmute, please. Thank you.
It's pretty challenging. It's pretty challenging place with a lot of competitors that are extremely powerful. We have quite big number of very well settled incumbent banks. We have quite big number of startups that are started and managed to show the products. It's great because, again, everyone is coming to Singapore to try this market and use this market as a starting point for their journey. The same for us. We are targeting Singapore market, but we are not only here. We are operating in Hong Kong. We are looking to Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and other countries as well as Philippines. The part and probably one of the most exciting moments for me personally in Singapore is the ability to do the highly specialized banking services. We were very used to differentiate our customers based on their accounts, but what about the SMEs? How the banks are helping SMEs? What about the banks that would be specialized only in the food and beverage, for example, or some other industries? Banks that are deeply understanding the problems of the specific sectors and building the products that would be very targeted and very accurate to address the needs in the specific sectors. I think that Singapore, yes, we have a lot of competition here, but we still have a lot of areas where people can show their creativity and make quite a lot of money and help customers at the same time.
Indeed. Thank you, Alex. And you did get Greg's attention when you mentioned that AMTD is looking at Philippines. So Greg, Tonic Bank is unique. It's based out of Singapore, serving the Philippines market. What's your view on Singapore as a fintech place?
Thank you, Shweta. I think Singapore is one of the most advanced places in the world for government support of the startup ecosystem in general. I am very, very honored to actually be living here now for the last quite a few years. And I've lived in many countries. Singapore is my country number 8, and have done business in, I think, 40 or 50 countries. And nowhere have I really seen this kind of proactive and pragmatic approach to supporting the ecosystem, supporting the business environment, making things simple. It's been a tremendous help of being here. And I think it's also recognized very well by the regulators and the ecosystem in the adjacent countries. Being headquartered in Singapore and coming out of the Forum Venture Builder, which I previously co-founded, and Tonic was one of the Forum Ventures. So that actually gave us very significant credibility vis-a-vis the regulator in the Philippines, I think, because they recognized that, coming from Singapore, well, it can't be all too bad. Maybe there's something to it. And we had a very, very productive conversation. We're able to strike up a relationship which ended up providing us with a unique track to jointly with the regulator creating effectively the digital bank regulation for the country. They used us as a guinea pig. So I think it's great to be doing business in Singapore and being headquartered here. We've really been very blessed with access to resource, access to developer resource and product resource, etc. So a really good place to be doing business out of Singapore for the region.
Thank you, Greg. And yes, indeed, I would second that. A lot of these fintechs are based in Singapore, but doing business across APAC. So I would like to take this to you, Dr. KSL. These fintechs, how are they transforming the landscape in APAC and for countries like Myanmar, and how is Yoma Bank responding to it?
Yep. So I think fintech's works is quite general, right? There are many types of the business fall under the fintechs. And the boundary between fintechs and bank are very narrow nowadays. A lot, no boundary already overlap a lot, right? Technically, fintechs can do a lot of the things, or maybe almost everything like banks can do. Even they can have a digital token, blockchain, whatever currency also available. So the boundary is mainly not related to the technical, more on regulation and governance sides, right? So banks have a more regulated, like a AML, KYC, and a couple of the fintechs are not regulated up to that level, and banks are more regulated on the PII, personal identification, information control, privacy, right? And a few fintechs very strictly follow, but some startups are stay a bit weak. So technically, we are using almost about the same platform, right? So better, the customer segment may be a bit different, right? Fintech are mainly focused more on the mass market consumer at this moment in APAC and also in Myanmar. And banks are supporting financially most of the SME. For example, if you have a fintech and can do the microfinancing, right? And bank can support financing to that fintech to support to the end, right? The end part of our supply chain on consumer. So that is the way Yoma Bank is positioning that to collaborate, working together to reach out to the more people. Because bank, we have only limit so far we can do for financial inclusion. And fintech can play a big role on that. And then we will work together and support together to achieve for that financial inclusion and then market reach out. Because Myanmar, we need to do the market is still very green, right? We need to do a lot of the things, and the bank can only do so far, and a lot of the place fintech also can do. The only thing is in some place, right, both can do. And that is an area we need to be aligned very well. Sometimes regulator may align. If there is no clear regulation in Myanmar, we are stay building at, right? Not reach to this like a level of the Singapore. So that will be a bit hard to find set in the stone clarity, right? But anyway, at the end, the customer will decide. Right? If fintech can provide better service, then the bank will lose the game. But the bank can provide a better service, the customer will still using the bank. So that's why the digital transformation and digital journey of the bank is a very important strategy for medium to long term to go in market and in Myanmar.
Indeed, thank you. That was really insightful, Dr. Kaisal. And it's good to hear that banks are collaborating with fintechs in this journey. And as the third largest fintech in the world, how does Finastra see them playing a role in the banking and financial services sector?
Thank you, Shweta. And I think when we look at Finastra, or when you look at the whole world of financial services or banking services, we are by far the largest pure play software only vendor in this space, right? Looking at FIS and Fiserv, there were huge services component to it. But that said, we are a drop in the ocean. We could be a bucket in the ocean of banking services and financial services. And for us, it is extremely important to see ourselves, our systems be open. If the future of finance is open, that's our tagline, because we need to be open to an entire ecosystem that a financial services provider will stitch around us or stitch with us, that entire fabric. We are a part in a very big chain. And that's the most important piece that we look at it ourselves, right? Simply put, innovation, as we know, comes from the outside. The innovation that we do, 95% of innovation is done by companies outside of Finastra, and we accept that, right? That's going to be a vendor in AML, a vendor in KYC, a vendor in this, right? We accept that. I can sweat my assets, get more innovative, it'll still be 94. You'll still have so many other systems, so many other people doing very interesting experiments, including your own techniques, which is what Greg's tech team is doing, which is what Dr. Kaisal's tech team is doing. And I'm sure, Alex, your tech team does the same thing as well. And for us, I think it's very important when we look at our role, we have an important role. At the same time, we have a humble role that we are not the be all and end all. We got to partner with the customer. We got to partner with the fintechs of all shapes and sizes, be it an internal IT team, which is a fintech of its own right, or a fintech could be in the payment space, the lending space, the AML space, the KY, whatever it is. And it's our platform that should enable it. We want to play an enabler role, a role in that ecosystem to bring banking to all, right? And that's our thrust and our focus. That's really what our platform and our solutions are about.
Thank you, Anand, and indeed, interesting insights. So the whole digital banking and the transformation journey, actually, the digital challenger bank story started in the Europe and the US, and it got onto the Asia Pacific region very quickly. We've seen big names like Monzo, Revolut, who have come in, and when they entered the APAC market, they inspired banks like Tonic, that started the digital challenger banks, and banks like Yoma that started their transformation journeys, and banks like Airstar that AMTD is part of, that were digital challenger banks and part of the virtual challenger banks in Hong Kong. So I want to ask all our panelists on this, what is your view of the key digital trends in Asia, in Southeast Asia, or even going all the way up to North Asia? Within APAC, how do you see these trends shaping up in the market, and how do you think they will change the market? I'll start off with you, Greg. Where do you see these key trends coming from, and what are they in the market?
Thank you, Shweta. I would say that, there are two big trends to me, that one is very overrated and the other one is very underrated. And is very overrated is the payments trend. And a lot of the times when you hear about financial inclusion, then the types of companies and the types of products that people associate it with are in the payment space. And I think very few people have actually figured out how to make money there. And most of the people that are traditional bankers like myself remember the mantra that current account is a loss leader, always has been a loss leader, always will be a loss leader. Not charging anything for it like the European neobanks do doesn't make it less of a loss leader. It makes it more of a loss leader. So essentially, that to me is, is an issue, which is why I don't spend a lot of time worrying about these neobanks, because they haven't quite figured out the monetization and the whole payments trend. Yes, there's a lot of it. Yes, it's enabling a lot of exciting services, but nobody's yet figured out how they're actually going to make money on it. So to me, the most trend is actually the consumer finance trend, because I think the scale of the consumer finance opportunity in Southeast Asia is completely underappreciated by most of the industry players. I come from Europe, and I've done a number of deals and then a build in emerging Europe. As a founder, I founded and built a bank before that focused on consumer finance in one of the markets in emerging Europe. So I've seen the per capita trends. And I think if we follow the same per capita trends and we translate them into Southeast Asian populations, what we see is there's $500 billion worth of asset class in the process of being created in Southeast Asia, driven by this absolutely secular and, in my mind, unstoppable middle class trend. So it's just on a per capita basis, if you apply it to 100 million in the Philippines, to 150 million in Indonesia, etc. So Philippines alone, our estimate is the market will, in the next decade, reach $100 billion size of unsecured consumer lending. If you do that business profitably, you can do it with return on assets in the range of anywhere from 12 to 20%. So it's probably one of the most profitable opportunities worldwide today in terms of an asset class. And I think, all these digital lenders that have raised 10 million here and 20 million there, all of that is just not even scratching the surface. It's about nothing. It's like a little mosquito buzzing around the elephant, right? So that's why we do what we do. we're looking at building scale into the liability side of our balance sheet, and the only way to do that is by building a retail deposit proposition. But ultimately, we see ourselves as a lender, and that's the core business, and that's where I think the opportunity is, the real meat of the opportunity is.
Thank you, Greg. So current account is overrated, consumer finance is underrated. That is an interesting thought. Over to you, Dr. KSL. What do you see as the key digital trends?
I believe that in Southeast Asia, the digital trend is vary from the country to country, depends on the maturity, right? Singapore may be the most mature country, and Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam may be following. And like Myanmar, there are a couple of the country where we a little bit stay not mature enough yet on the digital trending. For example, after we have a digital channel, like a mobile apps available, right? You can look at your balance transaction, everything in your mobile app. So Yoma Bank decided to stop the passbook printing for a saving book, right? So, but as I said, right, the digital trend is actually served by our customer, by people, right? So a lot of the senior citizen doesn't like it, right? Because they want to see there are money in the books by number. They make them safe and comfortable that I have a money. Right? They are not trust the money in the bank if it is not printed on the paper. So that is a generation trend, right? We have to present it in the paper printer. But newer generation at this moment, they are very comfortable doing the online shopping, right? Doing a lot of the messaging or Facebook, even the call center, right? They want to use the instant messaging to contact to the call center, not the phone call like before. So the digital literacy is a very important for the trend. So especially in Myanmar, we still need to improve a lot of our digital literacy to majority of the people, plus the cybersecurity awareness. So that will improve the digital adoption of the country-wise. So, but in the end, with this the COVID situation, right? Every country, including Myanmar, the digital trend is, we can call it, it is not a trend, right? It is the roadmap that we must go, right? You will achieve today or you will achieve 1 year or 5 year time. People are going there. So the speed is a little bit different, and then the distance will be a little bit different countries to countries, but every country are going the same roadmap, the same journey. The only thing different is our position, where we are will be a little bit different at this moment.
Thank you, Dr. Kesar. Very well said. Yes, it is true that it will vary from country to country, and you do have the challenge of your customer base. You need to manage the older customer base and without eliminating things like passbooks and checkbooks, and manage your new gen customers by giving them digital capabilities. So you need to balance it and converge them, and it is a tough job. Over to you, Alex. What do you see as the digital trends, considering Airstar is operational in Hong Kong? What is your view on this?
Maybe I would touch a little bit as an engineer. I would touch the engineering aspect, and that's where I think we are in Asia pretty late to this topic. So I'm talking about the open banking platforms, and I'm talking about the interbank connectivity and open APIs. The ability to exchange the data, the ability for customers to access their data, and ability for the startups that are building the services around this data is quite interesting. So we would see, and I believe it's something that is growing. We just saw that Singapore has launched the marketplace where you can pool your data from different banks, and that's for sure. It's from the engineering perspective, it's one of the most significant and most interesting digital trends that I see personally.
Thank you, Alex. And it is an interesting perspective from a technology side of view. And I would like to take it to you, Anand. I'm sure you would have a lot to add on the digital trends. What is your view on this topic?
I mean, I think I have nothing more to add, really. Greg, KSL, and Alex touched upon it, right? And I think the piece that I would like to comment is there is a human element to all of this, right? And one has to look at it. It's very interesting, Alex. You talked about open banking, right? Open banking and PSD2 came out of Europe, which is, I would say, a little more center left, right? Politically, a center left, more sharing culture, socialistic, right? Though I know both Alex, you and Greg are from Russia, it's a different mindset, right? If you take a look, the US, being capitalist, never really embraced open banking, right? It is my data belongs to me. It's me. It's all about that, right? It never really embraced it, being the technology forefront, right? You never see JPMC and Citi, for example, share any of that. And in fact, they would block the regulators, FDIC, and will trying to do that, right? It's a very interesting piece that there's also a human dynamic in how far the digital we all go to, right? What is society finally going to say, right? And that's a very interesting piece, and they're going to vary a lot. You can see China being so evolved in digital. For example, onboarding in China is just peering into a camera. You're done, right? Facial recognition, and you're done. They know, you know everything about that person, and you're done, right? Would that be acceptable in other parts of the world with data privacy and so on? Probably not. So I think it is going to be a very interesting topic, right? And you've got the generational gap, which interestingly, COVID has kind of reduced the generational digital divide, forced people to embrace digital over passbooks, right, and branches. So I think I really want to endorse, right, the technology view. There's a business view, but there's also a societal view of digital. And that's going to shape banking, financial inclusion, joint ecosystem partnerships. Where does the buck stop, right? And who owns the data? Finally, in open banking, who owns the data? Is it the consumer or the bank, right? And I would argue it's the consumer who owns the data, right? And I need to control what pieces of information about me are relevant, right? And I think that's going to be a very interesting piece. And financial services, fintechs that can crack that data nut will be extremely successful, I think, right? With the right things.
Thank you, Anand. And you did cover a very vital point that all said and done, how digital impacts each country would be different because it will vary with regulations and not just trends which can be applied to all countries. And Dr. Kaisal did talk about every country having its own journey and pace on this digital transformation. I would still come back to saying that technology is at the heart of the digital disruption, and it plays a very vital role in this journey, which brings us to the key question. And I know, Greg and Dr. Kaisal, you did touch upon it, of the role that Fusion Essence as a core banking system played in the success of Yoma Bank and Tonic Bank. I would still like you to tell us more on how do you think, as a core banking system, Fusion Essence helped you with this transformation journey. I'll start with you, Dr. Kaisal.
Thank you. So I would like to go back to the today's situation, right? COVID, right, as a pandemic, bring a lot of the negative points to the human society, right, impacting to the people, human life and business also. But on the other hand, one of the good point is COVID forced us to sit and rethink the banks, the way we are providing our service to our customer. They force us to change the way doing business or service to our customer, right? So it's not the same like before. And new normal also will be different from our previous life we live. So the digital journey is a kind of must-have journey, right? So Anand is saying very rightly that, right, in digital, there is no end of day. There is no daily report, right? It should be always real time. So our core, as a core banking access, is a heart of operation, heart of or core of the backend operation, right? Transaction engine, product engine. So we have to be very robust, 24/7, never fail, always success kind of the engine, like our heartbeat is always beating at the same time, always. So that is something we have to rethink of our products, our strategy, and our services to our customer. So that will be a change. So in tomorrow, the co-banking needs may be different, from what we need today because of the new normal, the way we are working. So I think co-banking requirement also will change, and it's a lot covered by the NN. So that is we have to be visionary, and then we have to be on the journey, how are we going to do? Anyway, core is always, the name is already say, right? Core is always the fundamental must have component behind the scene to be able to provide all the services.
Indeed. Thank you, Dr. KSL. Core is the backbone to all the services that a bank needs to provide to its customers. Greg, over to you. How do you see Fusion Essence playing a role in your journey with the growth?
Thank you, Shweta. For us, the partnership with Finastra has been tremendous support because we're actually the first bank in the Philippines, and I think one of the relatively few in the region that is completely in cloud. Using the Finastra in cloud solution, I think cut months from our deployment time. We were able to achieve much faster configuration with you guys than we would have normally been able to achieve under a traditional on-prem deployment. The product features, I think, were variable enough to allow us to do a lot of innovation around it. That gives us products that some of which will be first in market and product features. So it's really been, the speed and the flexibility has really been great. And guys, we do appreciate your support, especially in the last few weeks leading up to the go live. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Greg, and it's good to hear you have positive thoughts about the speed and agility. I would like to wrap up this session with you, Anand. What is the Finastra strategy going forward, and how do you see Finastra supporting the banks in this journey?
Sure. Thanks, Shweta. And I think our strategy is we want to have banking which is open, a very flexible core banking platform with a platform that enables the ecosystem. That's very important. That's Fusion Cloud. The platform enables innovation. Innovation comes from everybody. It doesn't come from the vendor itself. And that's the most important piece that I would like to leave everybody with. It's the fintechs, it's the internal IT teams, it's even the operations teams who come up with innovative ideas. And the platform, the backbone, is flexible to support that. And that's the most important piece as we go through it. When eventually we'll get there, no end of day. That's my mantra. Right? It'll take us time. We will get there. But that is where a true, full digital core banking system comes alive. And again, for us, it's the customer journey that really makes it all worthwhile. Today we have Dr. KSL, Greg, and it's the partnership, right? Every time we learn from our customers. Every single time there is a bug in our software, we learn. Every single time somebody says a new product is not flexible enough, we learn. And it is that continuous learning that makes the system much better, right? And that's the feedback loop that we want to embrace, that we will embrace, and it will get better, right? And that's an eventual goal. That's pretty much what I'd like to say. And I want to thank all of you, right? I want to thank Dr. KSL, Greg, Alex. Great conversation there. So Shweta, over to you.
Thank you, Anand. And I really want to thank all our panelists today. Really appreciate you taking time out and giving us your valuable insight. And I hope you enjoyed this session and did get some good learnings and key areas that you can think on the digital disruption story. Finastra is proud to be part of the Singapore FinTech Festival 2020. Do visit our virtual booth within the SFF Exhibitors Zone to find out more about Finastra and what we can offer. Thank you all and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, KSL. Thank you, Alex. Bye.
Thanks very much, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Hi, thank you all.